quickly, I thought I'll give my intro, but Shweta probably did most of it. But yeah, as I already have a slide, I'll probably walk you through a quick intro about myself, so that yeah, you'll be more comfortable in asking me any questions that you have, and probably ask relevant questions, and don't ask yeah, questions that I don't know answers to. Yeah. After that, I just want a few inputs from you guys on what are your expectations from this particular session. Although I have a agenda there, like before interview, how do you do it, during interview, and then how I usually take interviews, how do I rate people, etc. Uh, I have no problem with deviating a bit from what I already have here based on your expectations. Cool. And yeah, throughout the session, like although we have a Q&A session at the end, I don't mind taking questions as and when like you have some questions. So just stop me whenever you think you have a question on something that I just said, or if you want to go on a parallel line to what I explained in a particular piece of this presentation. Cool. Yeah, and you can comment probably if you don't want to interrupt. Cool. Yeah, first introduction, I thought like a word cloud would be cool as an intro. I think it's cool, but yeah, it's probably could have been better. So myself, Achit, so I graduated from IIT Kharagpur from Industrial Engineering and Management in 2013. Yeah, after that, I worked in HSBC along with Brijesh, who's one of your mentor. We worked there for retail bank. I worked there for retail banking analytics. After which I moved to Quantium, which is my current company, which is again a Hyderabad-based company. I went to Australia for a few months, and then came back, and then currently working for Quantium. On recruitment front, I have been interviewing people for analyst roles for over like 2 years now, 2 to 2.5 years. In addition to that, I led the grad recruitment last year. So we went to a few campuses, which include like IIT Kanpur, IIT Madras, Madras School of Economics, etc. Yep, that's I think pretty much about me. So I just want to understand like your expectations from this session. Can anyone go first there? Okay.
Guys, anyone can chip in and say something like what they expect from this session. That will be very beneficial actually. Any one of you can take a shot.
Hi. This is Shibashish here.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. So yeah, I was expecting that like what kind of questions would be asked from my field. I'm a postgraduate in economics from University of Calcutta, 2016 pass out. So I was expecting what kind of questions I might face while I'm facing an interview. How should I be preparing for an interview?
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
And one more thing, like how do grade points matter in interviews? Like for example, I have a grade point of more than 3.6. So like people who have an average of more than 4, do they have an edge over me even though they are not technically sound? So like how much technical knowledge matters while facing interviews?
Yep, I think I'll definitely answer that question. Those questions. Really nice. Yep.
Hey Achut, Agnish here. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Hey Achut, actually the thing is like I have an experience of more than 7 years in IT. However, I will be a fresher if you consider the analytics background, like in the analytics domain actually. So when I will be interviewed, like how to tackle, push off my experience of 7 years into analytics and IT by balancing of the thing. If you can help in that thing, it would be really helpful.
Yep, definitely. I have some good examples like relevant to that. I will definitely cover that bit.
Sure, thank you.
That's it.
And Achut,
Hello.
another thing, like as far as the work profile is concerned, like
Mm-hmm.
what is the difference between a business analyst and big data analyst? Suppose you are joining a company as a business analyst or
Mm-hmm.
a big data analyst. So what is the difference between the profile of those two jobs actually?
Okay, probably I'll answer this now because it's probably not part of the existing scope. So in our organization, we do have these separate profiles when we recruit for a big data analyst versus a business analyst. For a business analyst, we kind of look at someone with more commercial inclination, uh, yeah, more commercial inclination. With probably he need not have like super good technical skills on handling huge data, etc. But he should be more kind of a consultant with a knack towards data, probably understanding raw numbers, able to put like good graphs to explain what he wants to do, etc. So this is more a business analyst. Probably a junior guy will do for this. When it comes to big data analyst, we'll rather look at someone who's technically more strong, and we don't expect too much commercial inclination from that guy. Like it's so if you most of the skill sets are the same. It's just that a big data analyst is more technically inclined, while a business analyst is more like commercial side inclined. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, Achut, that is fine. And another thing, Achut, like when I will be putting in my CV for any analytics position, right? As I told, like for the 7 years experience guy, like I will be putting in the experiences of the projects that I have worked on, right? But like how to show the experience on the analytics projects that I'll be working or I have already been worked upon.
So what we can do is we can take, yeah.
Yeah, we can take this question at the end if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, Achut.
Okay, perfect, cool. So on the expectations front, like everyone is happy with the couple of additions that they made.
I think question is asked, you can finish this question. Interesting. Yeah.
Hello, Brijesh?
Yeah, yeah, and some of them have questions which I've put up in the chat. We can take it later. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So quickly jumping on to the next bit, which is before the interview, how to do it. I kind of just put in my thoughts plus something that I found on the internet. So most of the stuff you are probably already familiar with, but I just want to emphasize on this because this is really important. And as the first image on this slide says, your first step to preparing for an interview is creating your resume. Uh, yeah, so one thing like I found in most of the interviews that I take is people think of resume as something that where like you brag about what you know a lot, like more than probably brag more than what you actually know, so that it gets shortlisted and you actually attend the interview. So that's definitely one of the objectives of you preparing your CV. But the thing that you want to understand should take care of is you shouldn't go overboard and like overkill for that particular position. Say if you are applying for an analyst position, probably a graduate level or like couple of years experience level, and you just heard about like Hadoop clusters or big data, you don't want to put it on your CV, because when anything that you put in on your CV will create the expectation of the interviewer. So what I mean by that is, so I as an interviewer come to an interview, and how do I decide the kind of questions that I want to ask a particular interview? So based on the few data points that I have, right? So one of them is, what does the job require this person to do if he is selected? So that's one data point. And the other only data point I have is your resume, right? So I'll have a certain expectations based on these two data points. The first job description, that's something that's not in your control, while the resume is something which is in your control. And the whole bottom line of you clearing that interview is whether you are meeting my expectations or are you exceeding my expectations? So you should be really cautious in creating this one data point which is in your control, which is a resume, which actually sets my expectations. So by that I mean, like, keep your resume really simple and only put in stuff that you are really confident about explaining. So if you are, say, if you are not clear about something but you still did a couple of courses on it and etc., it's fine to not put it on your resume and actually explicitly mention it on your CV. So that kind of gives you get you those brownie points, in the sense that, like, the interviewer is not expecting you to know big data, but because you didn't put it on your CV. But when you actually mention to me in the interview that you actually did a couple of courses and have some knowledge, that's like exceeding my expectations. So that probably will be the good things that I experience in that particular interview and will benefit you. Does that make sense? Yeah. Any questions there? Like, if I hear silence for 5 seconds, I'll probably take it as no questions. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So after that, like, a few standard rules. I think, like, most of you probably read them somewhere or heard it from people who you talked to previously. But I just wanted to emphasize on them too. The other things that you have to do before the interview is understand the company and the role. So yeah, you have to do your homework. So by company, I mean, like, so you have to know what job profile you are exactly applying for, what skill set does it require. If you can talk to people who are in those roles already, understand, like, how their interviews went, etc. And look up their website, look up their Facebook page, etc. So that's all. One. Two, if you know the interviewer forefront, stalk the interviewer. So by that I mean, like, look up his LinkedIn page, know what kind of skill sets does he have, and what is the overlap between his skill sets and your skill set, so that you'll know, like, how to direct the interview. Kind of like, if he's asking questions on a specific area, which is a common entity to his skill set and your skill set, that's a bonus for you. If he's asking questions outside that boundary, which is his skill set and not yours, that's probably not. So you have to try to deviate him from asking questions of the answers that you know of. A couple of ways how you can know about the interviewer and not probably about the companies, like LinkedIn, Glassdoor. You'll find a lot of previous questions that were asked in those interviews, etc. Cool. Yeah, and the other thing is, like, know your weaknesses. If you think that weakness doesn't impact the interview a lot, probably agree to it in the interview itself. Like, when he says, say SAS is probably not your best skill set, right? Or SQL is not your best skill set. It's okay to be frank in the interview and say, see, my experience in SQL is really little. I didn't work a lot on it, so I might be only able to answer your basic questions and in nothing more. So it's okay to agree there, rather than just he finding out that you are not good at something, right? And so a couple of just operational things, like planning your journey, equipment. Like, usually, like, in my interviews are mostly WebEx, except for a few where we fly in people. So things like having a proper working webcam, just mics, or you carrying a pen and paper with you. Those kind of things show how serious you are about the job, and that's definitely one of the points unconsciously interviewers look for. Like, I do it consciously, kind of. Are they well prepared for the interview? That shows how serious they'll be in the future job, and that definitely is one of the factors that I will take in when actually making the final decision. And also interview questions. That's something like, anything that you have in your CV, be well prepared. So you mentioned a particular skill, say SQL, SAS, be completely prepared on the basic questions that are going to be asked. And yeah, bottom line, like be prepared. Cool. Any questions here before I move on to the interview day thing?
Hello, Achut.
Yep.
Yeah, this is Siddharth. You said something about if interviewer asking something like some skill set which I have not well prepared. Then you told that I need to deviate him or her from that part. So how to do that? Because it's pretty much tough for me to to dominate in that PI session which I last had. So it's, can you put some light on it?
Yep. So probably you can't you can't directly deviate from that. So a couple of things there. You are probably not well prepared and not good at it. Break it there. Like it's kind of so don't prolong it by answering something that you are not sure of. Just say I'm yeah, that's probably my weakness. I didn't prepare for it, or just call out that I don't have much experience in this particular skill set, and break it there. So it's kind of this. Look at it this way. So you have 1 hour to prove that you are kind of the best, right? Like for this particular job, or half an hour to prove that you are best for this job. So the amount of time you spend on a particular thing that you are good at uh, is really important. So when the interviewer is focusing on something you are not good at, instead of you camouflaging it or saying that trying to answer answer something that you are not sure of, and we spending too much time on something that not you are not good at, that will in a way decrease the time that you will be spending on the things that you are good at. So it's better when I say deviate, as you said, like it's probably really hard for you to intelligently like divert him to something that you are good at. That's yeah, pretty difficult. So instead you can just say, okay, accept that this is probably your weakness. If it's something a really crucial thing to the job description, then you are probably not the best guy for the job. But if it's not, which is most of the cases, just break it there and move on to the next piece which you probably are good at.
Okay, okay, thank you.
uh, any more questions? Cool. Moving on to the next bit, pretty generic. So this is probably, I'll probably not add anything more to your knowledge on during interview at this point, but yeah, probably I'll help my experiences which I listed in the next slide will help better. But just to put everything in here, during the interview, first thing, like be really confident. Even if you are say not sure about something, some small things, that's completely fine. But yeah, on the interview day, like your body language should be like really positive. You should be really listening things that the interviewer is saying, etc. And yeah, and the second thing is be ready. So the interview questions might be completely different from what you expected them to be, in the sense like you did a lot of preparation, read a lot of books, etc., and this might be completely different. So stay with that open mind. Like don't freak out when they ask something which is totally not relevant to what you thought it would be. uh, I have experiences of a few interviews where, in the sense like I gave a few interviews too, where like the whole intention of the interview was to actually take you out of your comfort zone and understand how you behave there. My HSBC interview was like that actually. So they have your CV, they know your skill sets, and when they intentionally ask you something that's nowhere here, there's probably some hidden intention, hidden idea there. Like so they so just be ready for all those situations. So even if they take you out of your comfort zone, be comfortable there. And if you don't know something, say, yeah, I didn't come across this. That's totally fine. Be really frank, and just look at an interview as a discussion rather than someone asking you questions and you answering everything. you should also ask a lot of questions there. And yeah, when you can convert a one-sided interview, like someone asking you complete questions and you answering everything, when you can convert that into more of a two-way thing where like he asked you a question, you answer it partially and probably ask him a question backwards. That kind of puts on the table your confidence levels and also how intelligent your questions are will actually impress the interviewer, etc. And yeah, so that's the third thing, I guess. And also talk it out, which is again in relay. It's when I say talk it out, it's mostly you are explaining all you like everything that you're confident about, even if the interviewer didn't ask the specific question, which is like your answer, kind of. And yeah, the last one is like time out. Take your time out. Like when someone asks you a question, don't jump and answer the question. Yeah, and first think, take a step back, think about the bigger picture. Like what is the question? Like is the question clear? Do I have more questions about the question that the interviewer asked? If you have, go ahead and ask, and then composedly answer those questions instead of jumping onto the answers. Cool. Any questions here? That's a lot of questions in one sentence. Okay. I'll move on to the next one, which is probably something I'm adding in the whole like some knowledge I'm adding in the whole presentation as of now. So how do I usually rate people, and yeah, how do I select few and reject few? So like back when I started interviewing about 2.5 years ago, I didn't exactly have a structure on how I usually interview people. And this is kind of like I learned from a few people who are more senior to me who interview, and then like some from experience. I kind of put a structure to it, and now the interviews I take, so I usually bucket, like have 3 kind of ratings, and based on the role, I'll give weights to each of these entities separately, and then have a final score, which kind of yeah, tells me whether that's above a threshold where I can actually forward him to the next round, or below a threshold where we have to just stop the communication and say like the role doesn't probably fit the guy. Cool. So yeah, so these are the main 3 buckets that I look at. Like one, communication, second one is technical, and third one is commercial. And yeah, probably I already said this, I do only technical rounds, and I did do some commercial rounds, but it's mostly technical, so my interviews are more tech intensive, but yeah, we do cover some behavioral aspects of it and some commercial aspects of it, so that like yeah, so that like when I forward someone to the next round, the interviewer from the next round doesn't come back to me and say like, how did you even forward me this guy, right? So just to not have that conversation, I do check some commercial aspects as well as some give some points to the communication aspect of the person. So yeah, before going through these pillars, I'll give you the flow of things that I actually do in my interview, right? The first thing I ask for is an introduction. I think that's pretty standard. Like every interview that yeah, most people attend, that they'll ask you to introduce yourself and probably talk about a few projects that you mentioned on your CV. Cool. Yeah. So here. So once this is done, like you give your intro, you talk about your projects, I move on to the next bit, which is usually some statistics questions. So yeah, given I'm not like that experienced in analytics, in the sense like I just have 4+ years, so I interview mostly people who are less analytics experienced than me, which makes logical sense. So people who I usually interview don't come with like heaps of experience in a particular skill set. So it's mostly basic, or no experience at all in a particular tool that or a particular technique that I want to understand. So same with stats. So I don't expect an engineer who doesn't have a statistics background as such to know too much about say some confidence intervals, still basic, but yeah, etc. So I'll start with something really basic on stats, and based on how they answer, I'll level it up a bit. So when I say really basic, I'll probably go with something really basic as mean, median, mode. Like how do you interpret it? How do you explain that to a layman, say, stuff like that, and then probably correlation. A few questions might be there, like yeah. So I can give you examples, but these might not be the questions that you will face in an interview. Uh, so yeah, one of the questions that I usually ask is when x and y are related in this way, say y equals to x square, what is the correlation between x and y? Yeah, that's pretty basic, right? Like you're just talking about correlation, which is something that you learned in +1, +2, right? So that's there. If they mention something on their CV about machine learning techniques, modeling, some basic questions there can be, how do you interpret R square? Or like, what is the difference between a logistic regression and a linear regression? Yeah, and yeah, like if they specified something more on stats, I can probably ask them questions around distributions, like, okay, you have a normal distribution or you have a skewed normal distribution. What do you think is the relation between mean, median, mode? Just that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, it's a really big universe. I can't definitely cover all the questions that will be asked in an interview. But if you are a grad or a couple of years or one less than that experienced guy going into an analytics interview, brush up your basic stats and just keep only the stuff that you're confident in on stats on your CV. Just because you ran, say, you ran logistic regression in SAS, which is a simple proctologic procedure, and you don't know anything behind it, you shouldn't put that on your CV. Because like if most of any analysts who are interviewing in many organizations, if they see ran logistic regression on particular data on your CV, they'll definitely ask questions on what goes behind. So if you are putting something there which you have just the front end experience, best thing would be you going back and understanding what runs in the back end when you just type proc this and inputs this. If you don't have time to do that, or probably there are some reasons that you couldn't do that, remove that from your CV and just have the basic stuff there. So that's more or less on statistics. Next, coming to tools. Again, here I don't. So if I'm recruiting someone for a graduate analyst position, I don't expect him to have knowledge about SQL, R, SAS, Scala, Hadoop. Definitely, if they have, they'll have some brownie points. If they don't, that's totally fine. You need not write those on your CV to get picked. You shortlisted for the next round. Yeah. So I can so based on like how many people are interested, I can probably talk about a few SQL questions later in the Q&A session. But right now I'll probably not go there. Same with R. And so the problem with these skill sets is not every company uses the same tool or the same technique to solve their problems. Like HSBC, all they used was SAS. My current company, it's a little flexible, but we mostly use yeah, SQL, Teradata, SQL, and Scala, and like you're basically a big data, yeah, and technologies. So we use that. Some other company uses something else. Some use R. So it's pretty company specific. If you so again, like it should be related to your research that you did prior to the interview. If you think the company uses a lot of SQL and you are good at SQL, just put it in bold on your CV there, so that their focus goes there and they'll ask questions on that. Because you're good at that, you will answer them well. That's again, like, that's probably the fourth step in my interview. Like, after stats, I will go with the tools, mostly the tools that they specified in their CV. I'll not go out of the tools that they specified in the CV, because they are not there, so they are not exposed to it. And that's the reason that a person got to a technical round, means we are fine with that particular guy not knowing that particular skill. So once I do that, like once I assess their technical skills on tools that they mentioned, the next bit that I go to usually is understanding how easily they can understand a problem. So by that I mean, like, I have multiple questions there. So a couple of them can be a simple graph interpretation. I intentionally will not give a lot of details. I'll just give him a particular graph and ask him an open-ended question there. I expect him to ask me more questions to completely understand it, and how quickly does he understand, how clear his questions are, etc., are something that I used to rate him there as well. So I definitely give a lot of importance to how easy a person is understanding the problem and how easily is he able to solve the problem. And given most of the interviews I do are with people who are less experienced or no experience, that becomes a really crucial part of my interviews. So once that is done, the next bits are more more to do with the commercial thinking of the guy. So there are a few ways there, like, so some graph interpretation that I used in my my way of understanding how quickly a person understands a problem. I'll use the same graph extension or a different problem to see like whether a person is able to commercially interpret the same thing as or not. I can ask I usually ask people, okay, you see a peak in the graph, what do you think what does it mean? Why do you think that peak appeared there? So such kind of questions. So that's part one to understanding his commercial bit. And then based on like how much time I have at the end of it, I'll look at asking him some guesstimates, puzzles, case studies. So these are pretty generic. So again, like, this will usually be related to some business that particular interviewer is in. So for me, I work in retail analytics. So to give you examples about say guesstimates, right, or a simple questions around to understand commercial thinking of the guy, I can ask something around say, I have this fridge. I want to introduce a new. I am a retail store owner. I have this particular fridge. I want to introduce a new product to my fridge, but the problem is my fridge is already full. So I have to remove something in my fridge to actually put this new product in, and I want your help to tell me which product should I delete, right? So this is an example of a question which is related to my business. So usually, like, if say you are applying for a bank analytics job, they might ask questions around, I want to start selling my credit cards in this particular region. How do I market them? That might be a question. Or like, I want to keep my bank funded with some amount which because some amount to give out loans, and I am doing this kind of marketing in this market. So how much amount you suggest that I should keep in my accounts as a reserve to serve that many loans, etc. So that these are like broad examples of these questions. So you should kind of be prepared for get familiar with the business of the job role that you are applying for, so that you'll be more comfortable in answering these kind of questions. Cool. And yeah, once I'm there, like guesstimate, I sometimes like we can complete it with puzzles, which can be really simple puzzles. You'll find a lot of them online, but or a case study. Case study is something similar to the questions that I just asked, and there are like good YouTube videos on how best you can answer case studies. But yeah, like good mantra is there is ask a lot of questions, keep the interviewer engaged. Like, so say you are thinking something, talk it out loud. You shouldn't like just think in your mind and solve everything and put a paper out to the interviewer. That's something they wouldn't appreciate. Rather, at every step, check with the interviewer and let him know how you are thinking, so that he can appreciate your thought process and give you a few brownie points there. Cool. Yeah. So that's pretty much about the flow of my interview. And now coming to how do I rate these three blocks here. So communication, as I said, the key things that I look at when I want to rate someone on communication is how well did he give his introduction, how well did he explain his projects, and did he ask me any questions throughout the interview and even at the end of the interview. So I'll look at these three to actually rate him on communication. So introduction, it's pretty simple. Like, you probably don't spend too much time there. Keep it simple, crisp. Anything that's relevant to this job role is something the interviewer is interested in. Don't talk about something which is probably personal or probably not relevant to this job at all. Some project that you did in IT, which is like really IT jargon rich, might not help in you impressing this interviewer who is looking for an analysis. So don't do that. Keep it small, clear, and relevant. On projects, also, like, you only talk about the projects that are relevant to the job profile, and also projects that the interviewer can understand. So you might have done a really awesome project which is like cutting edge technology, and you know the interviewer doesn't have experience in that particular skill set, then probably don't go there. And also, you keep it's good to throw in jargons here and there in your explanation, but yeah, what I think, like, it probably varies from interviewer to interviewer, but what I personally look at is how simple can a guy can explain his projects. So the simpler a person can explain a particular thing, uh, my understanding would be he knows it completely clearly. If he throws in too many jargons and probably talks high level, then my perception would be he probably doesn't know it completely. Yeah. And on questions, yeah, as I said, like, whenever there is an open-ended broad question that when you face an open-ended question in your interview, go back, like, ask a couple of questions to get a structure around the interview question. Yep. And also at the end of the interview, it's always a good practice, although it seems a little artificial, but it's always a good practice to ask questions around the job role, the kind of work, probably the tools that those guys use. Yeah, that kind of. So these things, right? Like, so consciously or unconsciously, the interviewers will. You are asking a question that the interviewer is comfortable in answering, and that probably kind of connects you with the interviewer, and will leave the interviewer will leave the interview with a positive note. And obviously, recency, in fact, is definitely there when he rates at the end of the interview. Yep. So do that. But yeah, these are high level. The three things I look at when I rate communication. Technical, first bit, like, think any tools, techniques that you specified on your CV and which are relevant to the current job role. Those play really important role in how I rate a particular person technically. That's one. Statistics knowledge. It's again like, if you mention some machine learning techniques that you used, etc. Questions will be asked on that. If you didn't, basic stats is something that you should be clear on, and based on how you answer those questions. And also, as I said, like, the questions level will go up as you answer. So I'll start with something mean, median, mode, then probably go to correlation, then probably go to distribution, then probably go to say R square, confidence intervals, etc. Like I'll stop if it reaches my threshold or your threshold, right? Yeah, so the higher you can go, the more points you will get there. And again, the third one is understanding the given hands-on problem. So this might have to do with say you specified SQL. I sometimes ask people to code out some logic that I just specified, and when I actually say my logic out, I'll not give him the complete logic in the sense that like I'll just end it openly, etc., and I'll see how easily he can grasp. Is he asking me questions to actually understand it? How did he cover all cases of that particular logic that I gave him, etc.? And that's probably the third sub pillar of technical. And I use all these to rate him technically. And on the commercial front it's again like it's more subjective than the other two blocks. Here, graph interpretation, as I said, like that's one of the techniques that I use. So I can give him as simple as a sales graph, and there are probably some peaks. I'll ask him to explain like why do you think there's a peak. He can fire a lot of reasons, and based on the number of reasons and the way he's thinking, I'll rate him how commercially acute he is. And then the other commercial things are like guesstimates, puzzles, case studies. These completely doesn't fit under commercial, but still that's the closest they get to in all three pillars. So I just put them there. And again, like, so I'll usually ask something relevant to my business and try to understand their understanding of my business, so that like when he gets actually into my organization, he'll have some context. We know he can understand this business and he can perform well. So that's the reason I have that. And the last thing is like, so as I said, like projects is a key part of the communication, but also projects falls as a key part of me assessing a particular guy's commercial skills. By that I mean, like, when I ask you about a project, like, I expect you not only to cover the technical aspect of it, but also the commercial aspect of it. Say you say like, I ran a logistic model to understand who leaves, who defaults a particular loan. That might be your project, right? So you can explain me all the technicalities of it, like what are the factors that you used, how is your data set, etc. But within projects, you should, without me asking questions around that, you should also cover on, okay, how many dollars did it save? Did the customer, like, say some other project where the customer's happy, how did you rate the customer? So that aspects of it should be directly there, and based on how much prompting which is needed to actually get that out of the interviewee is something I use also to assess the commercial aspect of the guy. Cool. I think that's pretty much from my end. The last bit is Q&A. So any questions on this, then followed by any general questions that you have. I'm open to take. Yeah.
So I was wanting to know, as a postgraduate in economics, what would be your expectation on me, like in the field of statistics, and like really how deep can the interviewers go while I'm at the interview? Like, like I believe that inferential statistics plays a big role in in the field of analytics, and you mentioned a lot of distributions, and there are other distributions as well, like chi-square distribution, T distribution, F distribution, and etc. So like covering that all up, like should we like know the basics, or really go deep into the into that part?
So that depends on two things. First, like, what is your background? So yeah, as you said, like, you are from economics eco background, and if in your CV there are things around you like studying a few say distributions or probably confidence intervals, etc. You should definitely be prepared on those. Uh, Yep. So that's one thing. So what's your background as such? Uh, I don't ask a engineering graduate who probably should say he did biotechnology engineering. I don't go
Right.
ahead and ask a biotechnology engineer stuff about chi-square distribution or like hypothesis testing is still fine, but yeah, something of that sorts. Uh,
And
so
yeah,
if you think
yeah,
you mention those things on your CV, then that's definitely something that you might be asked. But otherwise, I don't expect the interviewer to just ask you t-square or chi-square distributions.
okay, okay, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions?
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Achut.
Hi.
Yeah. See, I have got 7 years of experience with retail branch banking. I'm presently working now with HDFC Bank, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm into this business analytics course with IB. I've recently joined. It's about a month old. So, what kind of job opportunities can I expect, and what kind of questions that I may face, considering that I'm opting for a career change into analytics field?
Yep. Yeah. So definitely. So probably like to be frank, it's a bit hard for you to convince an interviewer that you are really interested in analytics. For that, you need to do some background work, and so that definitely shows you doing a particular course on big data to actually achieve this. Those kind of things will definitely add up. So you doing that, or probably some freelancing analytics, if you can do that, like there yeah, websites like Kaggle is one good example. So if you did solve some problems there, so all these kind of things will help you in convincing the interviewer. So that's the first hurdle that you need to cross. So once you are there, then it's equal grounds for you and probably someone with some experience in analytics. I, yeah. So once you are there, like yeah, everything that I said till now holds equally true for you. Just have only things that you have knowledge about, and just impress uh, the interviewer. On the opportunities front, I think yeah, analytics, like I think within yeah, most of the analytics employees as of now are really less experienced guys. Like I can confidently say about 60 to 70% of the analysts that we have till day are less than 5 years experience. So because
Okay.
analytics is pretty new field, so you uh, I don't see any reason for you to not go for a particular analytics opportunity and just look for a specific stream. So any opportunity that says require an analyst with some experience or no experience, you should be equally confident in applying for those ones.
Okay.
Hi Achyut, this is Mrinal. So I'm not sure, actually I was traveling, so I'm not sure whether you answered this question or not.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yep. Go on.
Yeah, actually, like I have an experience of around 6 years, and I'm working in an IT company. So I just wanted to know, so since I'm already having an experience of 6 years, like what kind of a questions like I might face during an interview, and like how I should be, like applying for the jobs, and like moving from IT into analytics, how it will be like how this shift will be like.
Yep. So, like personal, my experiences are mostly technical interviews. So I did quite a few interviews where people were like had a lot of experience in like non-analytics related firms. The max I ever did was 11 years experienced in IT, who was trying to move on to analytics. So probably like self-reflecting on those interviews, I would say, as I said, like the first hurdle would be you convincing a particular interviewer that you are seriously interested in analytics and that's why you want to move. And so to prove that, doing a few courses, doing some freelancing there, probably joining a few analytics blogs, that kind of stuff will help in actually you proving that. Once you are there, with your experience, I don't expect a technical interview to be too complex for you to answer. But I do see that on a commercial interview or on a behavioral interview, you will be challenged more there. And those will be more generic questions. So analytics knowledge front, I don't see many reasons for you to be worried, except the first hurdle on like how well can you convince the interviewer to actually make him believe that you're truly interested in analytics and that's the reason that you're moving into analytics. So once that is cracked, you are on similar grounds with any other guy who's applying for that particular job. And then it's boils down to how good you are with the skill sets that you mentioned. The commercial interview and probably the behavioral interview will be a challenge for you, and I think like that challenge is not much different from what you would face if you applied for a job which is in line with your current job description, which is an IT job or a software job. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers my question. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Achyut. I have a question here. But before that, am I audible, Achyut?
Yep, I can hear you clear.
My name is Tarun Datta. I have around 5 years of experience in the domain. So my question is that how much challenging would be for me to get into the analytics? And the second question is that what would be the expectation from the interviewer side from a guy which has an experience about 5 years in market research only?
Okay. Yeah. So again, like probably I'll repeat the same answer, but from a technical interview side of like perspective, I would say the interviewer, if he is rational, shouldn't expect too much from like any experience, non-analytics experienced guy that he's interviewing. So he'll probably treat you equal to a 1 year or 2 years like analytic experienced guy at max. That too again based on the kind of things that you specified on your CV. And from toughness perspective, I do think it's a bit difficult for you, not because you don't have the skill sets, it's because of a few other dynamics, something like the pay scale, etc. Because you are already experienced and you will have some decent package, they'll for sure know you, they have to pay you some more, so they'll probably look for some additional skills in you. And on technical front, I don't see much difference in how a guy will interview you to a other person who has no analytic experience with less overall experience.
Okay, adding to the answer of you, so I would like to know, as I have the 5 years of experience in this domain, so what should be my salary expectation from the concerned company?
That kind of varies from company to company. So so it's kind of like analytics. You have some companies as Mu Sigma which play at scale, some other companies which play with quality. So the pay scale varies a lot depending on the company that you are applying for. I can't really give you a number there, but yeah, kind of half clueless there. I just know that I need to pay you more than someone like who's 1 year or 2 years experience or less than that.
Okay.
Hello? Hello? Hello, Achu. Hello, Achur. Uh, Hello, I am Navajyoti. I am a BTech mechanical from SRM University, and then I did MBA in operations and marketing. So I see most of the firms hiring for analytics are mostly commercial firms or financial firms like JP Morgan and HSBC and all. So I don't have any commercial or financial knowledge, uh, financial, more of financial and commercial knowledge. So I'm a bit into technical guy. So what should I expect from in the personal interview? So they are the interviewers going to ask me about some financial questions, or they will stick to some technical things?
Usually no. Like if you are applying for an analyst position, uh, yeah. So from the few experiences I have, like I gave interviews to companies like Barclays Capital, like HSBC, where I got selected, but few other companies, and my answer would be no. Like they wouldn't expect you to know too much about their business, but at the same time they should you need to make them understand that you have interest in that particular business. So for that you need to do your homework. So know all the basic stuffs, like when you are going for an HSBC interview, say know the products of HSBC. Like okay, they have current accounts, they have credit cards, they have this. Understand how a credit card makes money, something of that sort. So if, say you are truly interested in a particular company, you have to do your homework. And when I say homework, it's not just the high level. Probably go into a little more details. And it's not a just it's not just for that interview. Like if you learn this once, it might pay off in some later interview that you go at a later date. A lot of things, right? Like even if they don't ask you a particular question on a particular product which in their business, and but they ask you a technical question, and you while you answering it, you take the example of that particular product which is relevant to their business. They'll connect to that more, and it will benefit you a lot.
And if once you get selected in that firm, suppose a financial firm, so are you going to work with some financial things, or you have to stick with the technical data?
So a few consulting companies have a consultant team as well as a analytic support team with that consulting team. So in those companies, yeah, you do work hand in hand, like where the consultant comes with some questions from the client, or the marketing guy comes with some questions from the client, and you as an analyst sit with him to actually solve it. He adding his commercial knowledge, and you bring your technical expertise to the table. There are those companies. Then there are pure analytics play companies, something like my example that I just gave. So there it's more kind of you have a closed single question from the client, and you have a lot of numbers with you, a lot of data with you. You just try to answer that question with the few numbers that you have. So there are both all kinds of companies. When you apply for the company, just probably try to bucket them into these groups, or if you can find a third bucket or fourth bucket, do it, and also understand whether it aligns with your ambitions. And yeah, based on that, uh, just apply for them or not apply for them, or prepare accordingly, kind of.
Thank you.
Achyut, I have another question.
Yeah.
May I go ahead?
Yep.
Okay. So Achyut, my question is that if I join an e-commerce company for analytics, then what would be the future prospect for my career? First, and second is, can I later move into other sector like retail analytics and automobile analytics, artificial intelligence?
Yeah. So definitely one of the kind of, I would call it, beauty of analytics is it doesn't the kind of work that you do doesn't change a lot with the particular domain that you're working on. So say my example, right? I previously worked with a captive analytics company, HSBC. So we used to do only analytics for the bank, and I only worked on retail banking products, which is just credit cards, current accounts, overdrafts, loans, etc. So that was my previous profile. Right now I work for retail analytics team, which is supermarket analytics. uh, yeah, to give you an example, the kind of work that I do, it's yeah, it's kind of like Unilever comes up to us and says, okay, I want to launch a new product, which product should I launch? So that's so on the commercial front, you see a lot of difference in these two things, right? So at HSBC, I was asked questions around how many credit cards did I sell, or should I increase my interest rate on credit cards? So these were the questions. Now with a completely different domain, with some other question, I want to launch a new product within Unilever. What product should I launch? So at a high level, it might seem really different, but when you get to the bottom of it, all you will see when you're looking at the data is you have this particular field. Here it's called credit card number. Here it's called product number. And all you have is, here you have some sales. Here you have some similar sales. Kind of similar kind of data with probably different naming and all. And the kind of codes or the kind of logics that you use to actually get your answers are almost similar. So you can actually move really easily from one domain to another domain. Definitely, once you are experienced, your experience is probably 5 years or more or something of that sort, the domain you are in will definitely help in you moving to a job which is in the similar domain. But again, saying that, it's not that difficult for you to move into an analytics firm which plays in a completely different domain. Because yeah, working analysts and also people who actually do interviews, who are experienced analysts, most of them do understand and from experience know that all a person who is probably not from the similar domain as I work in misses is some commercial aspect, and that's not rocket science. Like, that's something that he can pick up really quickly, and that's definitely not a strong point for me to reject someone. So yeah, my final answer is yes.
Okay.
Don't worry too much about the domain. You can always switch, and it's a lot easier for someone to switch from one domain to another. It's definitely not like IT. It's like someone can't switch from Android to iOS. Analytics is not that. Like, you can always move between domains because the underlying technologies, the data, it's all similar. It's just the commercial aspect of the only missing block, and which is easy to acquire.
Okay, so looking my profile, can I move into machine learning in future?
Yep, I think so everyone starts off. Most of the people start off as a simple business analyst, which is basic SQL asks to do some simple codes, retrieve some numbers, put in some pie charts, graphs, and present something. So this is the first level. So once people get more experienced and more comfortable with data, everyone moves to that next level where machine learning, artificial intelligence, which like neural networks, deep learning techniques, etc. And that's kind of marketed a lot as the next big thing. Yeah, and it's not rocket science again. Like, it's really simple. You can move. So once you are in the domain, it's as I said, like, it's easier for you to move ahead, which is doing more complex and more research, R&D kind of stuff, which is machine learning techniques or neural networks, etc. But the lateral movement should also be really easy, because as I said, like, just pick up the commercial aspects of the new business and you are an expert there.
Yeah, Achyut, Brijesh this side. So I think Megha has Achyut, Brijesh this side. There are a couple of questions, one from Dheeraj and one from Megha. Like you can see the chat box. Dheeraj has a question is, are there opportunities for freshers in the field of analytics? This was a question asked by Dheeraj. Megha has a question which I believe most of the freshers or people who are giving interviews, they have this thing in their mind. What to do if we get stuck in any technical question, case study, or guesstimate? So what's the best way to come out of it if we are not sure about it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, good question. So on the first question, do freshers have an opportunity to, in analytics? Yes, and I think freshers have the most most opportunities in analytics, in the sense that it's probably easier for you to crack these interviews because the interviewers don't expect too much out of freshers. And as I said, analytics is fairly new business, new in the world, and like specifically in India, it's not that old. So most of the people within analytics are really low experience, and obviously, so the technologies are just evolving. So people wouldn't look most of the jobs within analytics. We don't look for people who have real experience in these techniques. We rather look for people who can learn quickly, adapt these techniques, and work at scale. And so that's probably is the definition of a fresher who is like good kind of. So
yeah.
that's
Sorry, yeah. One question on top of it is like most of them, most of the freshers, they have completed their graduation. They haven't got, they want to shift into analytics, so they didn't opt for jobs, traditional jobs in their respective universities. Now they do courses from reputed institutes and they look to, get into jobs. Like they have a gap of around 6-7 months after they pass out from a university. So what is your perspective on that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, again, the thing boils down to you convincing you convince the interviewer that you are truly interested in analytics job, and that's why you didn't go for something else. And doing these courses is a really good way of convincing them. I think that's really important. Like I see a lot of people who at the heat of the moment are probably like job that go there and get stuck there for quite stuck there. So a moment for them into analytics is probably a little harder compared to the people who probably didn't opt for anything, just waited out 6 months, trained themselves up for skills skills that they are in line with the job that they are interested in. So these guys, probably these guys, like which is majority of our audience, I presume, will have better opportunities in these interviews than someone who jumped onto something and probably trying to switch after 6 months or after 1 year.
Okay. We can move to the next question asked by Megha.
Yeah. So, Vijay, can you repeat that question? It was around how to get that you can't answer, right?
Yeah, in a technical question or in a case study. What to do if we get stuck in any technical question, case study, or guesstimates?
Yep. So there are two ways to do it, kind of, to put it roughly. So the first way is probably really hard, which is kind of going. How do I put it? It's kind of like diverting the interviewer's focus onto something else by giving some more information to him, which is really hard and probably really risky. So I wouldn't take that. But if you can pull that off, which will be a really good thing. The second step is just be really frank and say, okay, I'm not really comfortable with this particular technology, or I'm not sure of this answer. Yeah, so that's the easier way to get out of it. But the thing that you should be cautious about is don't do this too many times in your interview. Uh, so it's fine to do it 1 or 2 times, and it's a good thing actually. If you are not confident about some answer, just say I'm not confident of this, but this is what I think, and just answer it and leave it there, uh, and proceed to the next step.
Hello, Achut.
Yeah.
Regarding that Mega's question, seeking interviewers' help when I'm stuck into a question, that can be a solution. Like, can you help me to do it out, or can you give me some hint, or that kind of stuff, that kind of.
Seeking interviewers help. Uh, yep. So yep. So you have to speak interviewers help. So when you didn't understand some question, uh, repeat what you understood first, and then ask, "Am I understanding it correctly?" If you didn't even understand to that level, it's totally fine to ask him. Just let out like what you think you understood, and ask him to complete the sentence, or ask more questions to completely get a clarity around it. And that's what I meant when I said like seek interviewers help on it.
Okay, but I'm not talking about that. I'm asking like someone stuck in an interview, that person is not able to answer that question. So in that time, can that person ask interviewer help, like, can you help me to do it out, or can you give me some hint? Like, can that person ask some question like that? That can be a way out.
Okay, got it. Uh, yeah. So let's say the answer is 100, and probably you got till 80, and you want to go that additional 20 to completely answer the question. That's probably a good point for you to ask interviewers help. Uh, but if you are like completely not sure, and probably at 20, and want the interviewer to help to go the additional 80, that's not a good idea. Just he'll probably you'll end up pissing him off maybe. Uh, and also it's mood specific. Like if you see the interviewer is really friendly and probably helping you out a lot in the prior steps, you can go ahead and ask for that.
Okay,
Just I think like probably
Yeah, hi. I raised this question towards the beginning of the session, that how far do GPAs matter? Like, I think that once you're selected for the interviews, I don't think it should matter much. But while selection of your CV, how much does your GPAs matter?
Yep. So usually GPAs doesn't matter in lateral hiring. By that I mean like if it's not a campus recruitment drive, uh, I don't see GPAs being reason for someone to not shortlist a particular CV within for lateral hiring. So if you're applying for a company directly through referral or something, on some way, if your GPA is average or above average or little below average, you need not be worried about your GPA. If it's really low, then there's nothing we can do. But if it's below average, average or above average, that doesn't help in any way, or probably it will not be a negative point for you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Achut. I just wanted to ask you one thing. That is, if somebody is experienced in IT, then is it possible for him to utilize his IT experience into shop? What? Another next question is, what sort of analytics companies one IT experienced guy should opt for?
Sorry, like your voice was breaking up. If I heard it correctly, you were talking about like how easy is it to find for a experienced IT guy to enter analytics, is it?
No, actually, my question is how someone like having an experience of around 5 or 6 years, is it possible for him to utilize his previous past experience for his new analytics job?
Okay. So yeah, I wouldn't say completely, but it will definitely help because analytics to an extent is coding, right? So if I define my job, like if I have to break down the amount of time I spend coding and amount of time I deriving insights and actually presenting to the client, it's probably 60% of my job description is me coding on a console to retrieve some data that I want. So an IT guy person who is familiar with, say, probably work with SQL, you probably work with Java, and given there are this new, so we are analytics, these technologies like big data, yeah, and Zeppelin notebooks, all these are coming into picture. So people can actually code to retrieve data in some low-level languages like Java or I don't know, I don't know many languages, but yeah. So they'll definitely help, but not to an extent where it would help for if you went for a job which aligns uh, with your current role.
Okay. And my next question is like, what sort of analytics companies one IT like experienced professional should opt for? Like some consulting companies or like some like hardcore analytics companies like HSBC or like who like are into this credit risk like those sort of companies.
Yeah. So analytics companies. So there are this a lot of new analytics companies that are coming up, which are analytics product companies. Like my company personally is trying to move to that area, and we are focusing on products. So you should probably look for these kind of companies, which are trying to make products using using data, and these companies would definitely appreciate your knowledge on product building or software development skills that you already have, and you will also probably relate this new job with a different skill set but similar kind of work there. So yeah, I would suggest look for these companies which are product focused analytics companies. uh, and the second, like this should be the top of your list. Second should be hardcore analytics companies, and like not the consulting ones, something like Music Mass. So where you will be more technically challenged and not like commercially exposed that much. And I think like given your current profession, you are probably more comfortable there and will become a star in that particular field. So that should be probably the second, and last comes a more consulting inclined. If you're not, if that's not your long-term goal, in the sense like if you don't want to be a consultant as such, these are the other two companies that you should look.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions? I think we have
Yeah,
probably
I have a question actually.
yeah.
Can I ask?
Yep.
Yeah, actually, there is a company X coming in 3-4 days, and they are like specialized in credit information system, business information, and they offer their help to bank and this other institution. And I am currently pursuing masters in economics. So apart from the economics and business studies, sorry, case studies and guesstimate, apart from these, I need to prepare myself for any other thing like related to company's job description or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I would suggest you look through the job description completely. If you can talk to people who are currently operating in that role to understand what kind of questions do they ask, etc. But in general, like given you are just a grad, I don't expect them to bombard you with questions on like their business as such. But it always helps to for you to be prepared on those lines. And also like so that's a lower priority one. The higher priority would be, as I probably repeated 100 times still in this. So prepare well for on everything that you have on your CV. Just don't yeah just be completely sure of everything that you have on your CV, and that's what major part of your interview is going to be. If they ask something out of this, uh, you should be still be comfortable, but it's totally fine if you didn't answer that bit. But it's really important that you answer what you said you are good at.
Okay, just one last question. This question is completely different actually.
Yeah.
This company are going to take some psychometric test, and let me give you an example. This test, some question will come like, suppose there is 100 rupees in the floor, will you pick it up or not? It's like kind of moral judgment or something like that. So they will definitely relate these things in the PI if I got selected. So after giving this exam, this online exam, do I need to like prepare anything or anything, because this is very much new for me. I have gave APT or something like that, but this is very much new, like this psychometric test. So do I need to prepare anything extra for this for PI actually?
Yeah. So if it's a technical PI, I would say no. But I think for this particular organization, you'll have all rounds: a technical, probably a commercial, and then a behavioral one. So we at our company do have a psychometric test, and like whenever someone goes for a final behavioral interview, we do carry a printout of the answers that the particular guy gave in his psychometric questionnaire. Uh, so just like when you're giving your psychometric test, don't uh, just don't overthink. Just put answers that come to your mind at first, because the idea of psychometric test, if you don't know it already, is they ask a similar question in like multiple different ways to actually gauge the exact personality. So if you're not really true and probably think too much on a few questions, then there will not be consistency on these 5 questions, which kind of try to test the same thing, which will be a negative point when it comes to behavioral aspects. So yeah, my suggestion is like whatever comes to your mind at first, just answer that. And because you are not morphing your personality there, you should and the interviewer comes with that perspective of you to the interview, and when he sees you matching to his perception, that's a good thing, and there are more chances that you'll be passed at that stage. And also like just a generic thing here, you shouldn't look at any job interview or any selections from a one-way thing. Not only the interviewer is looking for someone who matches his job role, you're also looking for a job that suits you. And that's how, because it's a long-term thing, you will be engaged in this job or in this profile for all the years going forward. Be really like, don't try to over impress the company by portraying something that you're not, because it will impact you badly in the long run. So just be what you are and try to get the best match. Like the interviewer should get the best match for his role, and you should get the best job for your interests.
Okay, thank you very much, Achyut.
Okay, so guys, I think we are done for the day. Just Achyut, like Mim Roy has asked a couple of times. Like, see, I think she is asking. I would like to know how disadvantageous is it to have a year gap in an academic career. So I'm not sure at what stage of our career the year gap is. But if I assume that the year gap is after the graduation, I think you have already answered that. She can always show that she has been studying or doing some course for
Yeah.
uh, for the data analytics interview. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just it's definitely some disadvantage. I yeah, frankly, like it's definitely some disadvantage to have a complete year gap. But if that year gap is you learning some new technologies which are relevant to the job that you're going to apply, something of that sort, uh, it's not a bad thing. Like you shouldn't be really yeah, motivated by that year gap. It's fine, and when someone assesses an interview, that's not a major factor that they take into consideration. And you should also not be over defensive about that year. Just mention that in your intro and leave it there. If they dig too much deep into that, just answer in short and probably don't try to be too defensive about that. Yeah, and yeah, that's the only suggestion. But it's not that big a thing.
Yeah. I think we are done. So if you guys have any other questions, just mail it to info@propelled or drop it to the same ID from where you got the invitation at IB. We can answer back. And thank you everyone for attending. And thank you Achyut for taking your time out and giving your insights. I hope it was an insightful session for all. And thank you everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Yeah. हेलो अरे भाई तू सर बहुत मजा रहा है बे इतना कॉन्फिडेंस अलग लेवल बहुत सही बहुत आईटी वाले थोड़ा गौर किए और काफी अच्छा था यार मुझे कैसा लगा क्या करेंगे बेचारे मार्केट ठीक है साइकोमेट्रिक वाला भी ठीक ठीक है घूम के आएंगे ठीक है तो घूम के आते हैं ना करना दूसरा देखते हो क्या लाया मेडिसिन